Doctor, clearly this patient has already been discharged. No, ma'am. This is conceptual art. Oh, I see. Of course. And, how are you, my dear? Pardon me, but his head is missing. Ah, of course, I should have read the oxygen. And how are you? Oh, do be careful, madam. This one is extremely contagious. No, thank you, doctor. I believe that this casualty deserves to be touched just like everybody else. Well, Miss Chief, if you insist, please do. This is a good investment. You're right. Time is good. Already? Oh, doctor, may I please have one last look at romanticism? Why, of course. If I can get love, perfect. For half an hour, for a day, a week, a month, for a year, 10 years, 100 years. Forever. Chief Abel Tesla. I'm the Doctor of Fine Arts. It is a pleasure to host you at the modern wing of our institution. I'm very pleased to be the doctor. I know that I can I'm very happy to do that. Not if you want to. Please follow me, Mr. Chief. Oh dear. I suppose this isn't the best place to begin our rounds. This one needs to be taken to the morgue. This is romanticism. He was the first casualty of modernity. On the precipice of modernity, I was inspired by two ancient traditions. On one side, classical art, and by the ancient cultures discovered in the mountain lions, birds, and the various habits. Yes, I know a lot about the romantic savage. Europeans projected their fantasies onto us. I had some how I was the toast of you, performing with my mentor and lover, George Campbell, in Paris and in London. But I am still a hopeless romantic. Anything you lately done? It's gorgeous, isn't it? How sad to see it go. What a waste of a beautiful creature. Oh, God,
Doctor, your next patient is waiting.
oh, why, yes, of course. Yes, Chief. Please call me.
Kent Monkman is a Canadian artist born on the 13th of November 1965. He is of Cree and Irish descent and is member of the Fisher River Band located in the Interlake region of Manitoba. He is a visual and performance artist and has consequently many different types of works, including paintings, videos, and installation. In the early 2000s, Monkman developed a gender fluid alter ego by the name of Miss Chief Eagle Testicle, which of course has a pun to the name, and is featured in many of his works. Miss Chief is Monkman, basically, who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community. Most of the works of Monkman have been featured in many galleries and museums across Canada, the US, and Europe. His main goal is to retell the historical narrative. So many of the paintings and pieces will have historical events being presented very differently. Born in St. Mary's, Ontario, and growing up primarily in Winnipeg, Monkman was raised in a mostly middle to upper middle class parts of River Heights, where his father was not welcome due to his Cree ancestry. The artist showed a talent and interest for the arts at an early age, which allowed him to obtain free training at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. This allowed him not only to graduate from Oakville's Sheridan's College in 1986, but to be featured in many Canadian and American institutes, including the Sundance Institute in Los Angeles. In the early stages of his career, his main focus was his Native heritage as a designer for the Native Earth Performing Arts, where he created sets and costumes for several productions, including Lady of Silence. He received a lot of recognitions and awards during his career, including the Boham Center Award. This award focuses on the advancement and education of sexual identification. He continued this focus in combination with his Cree heritage when he was commissioned by the curator of the University of Toronto Museum to create the Shame and Prejudice, a story of resilience exhibit. This exhibition is the retelling of Canadian history from the perspective of the Native peoples during colonization of Canada. Using mimicry, Monkman subverts the statu quo of his history telling. We expect that Canadian history would be told in the eyes of white European settlers coming to America. But in his works, we see that the same history is being told from the perspective of Native Americans. Not only is the perspective on ethnicity being presented differently, but so is sexuality and sexual identity, as Monkman often integrates his alter ego Mischief in his works. Consequently, the typical imagery and methodologies are reversed, and the power dynamic no longer favors the colonizers, but the colonized. An example of this change in storytelling is the painting Hanky Panky, where Monkman presents Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in a suggestive context, and Monkman himself is in the painting as his alter ego, Mischief Egotistical. The goal of this painting was to show the inequities in the Canadian justice system towards Indigenous women who were often victimized at a higher rate than women in the rest of Canada. Mischief is featured in many of Monkman's works, particularly those where he intends on retelling Canadian history. In some Native American tribes and cultures, transgender individuals are accepted and even honored, although this is not the case for all Native American tribes or cultures. Monkman felt as a member of the LGBTQ plus community and a member of the Cree Nation, it was important for him to integrate his alter ego and his own experience into his work. Mischief may not be a central focus in all of his works, but this is often the whole point when she is hidden or discreet in the painting. For this obliges us as the viewers to look for the subversion, as the power dynamics colonization are not always obvious. Mischief was created as an inspiration of George Caitlin's painting Dance to the Burdash, which depicts a traditional indigenous dance that shows people described as two-spirited. Caitlin had described this tradition as disgusting. Consequently, Monkman wanted to create works of art that rivaled those of Caitlin and show the idea of two-spirited individuals in a positive light. Mischief is also a reclamation of identity for Monkman, who, as for many, looks at colonization as a destruction of the way of life of many natives. Up until colonization, many Native American tribes had a very different idea of what constituted masculinity, femininity, non binary, and gender roles. Monkman wants to reestablish the tradition of his people and bring back many of the lost ideas and concepts that were once part of everyday life for them. Consequently, mischief can be looked at as a contestation and reclamation of the way of life, contestation of what Europeans brought, and a reclamation of what natives had. Mischief also represents the reclamation and contestation by wearing both prominent designer brands but also traditional indigenous clothing. The alter ego also contests the homogenization representation of indigenous people. Many tribes have very different ideas of identity and may also disagree on the topics of sexuality and sexual identity. The Cree people have the idea of tricksters, beings with supernatural forces that defy social order. which makes mischief also a trickster. In the same idea, mischief reverses the roles of the colonizer and colonized, where it was once the colonized who were submissive and fetishized. With Monkman, it is the colonizers that become submissive and fetishized. Finally, the audience also must reverse and reimagine their history and their ideas of what happened in the past and understand how that what happened from a different perspective. By bringing in modern day brands into historical events, it can be said that the present becomes the past and the past becomes the present. We are not separate from the events that occurred long ago. They are much as part of our present as a present is part of our future. In this video, as you can see, Kent Monkman reimagines TV novellas and TV dramas and really has you, the audience, not only be viewers but participate. Kent Monkman's breaks the fourth wall on a few occasions and compels us to participate in the show, in what is going on. You are not just a passive viewer, you are an active video watcher who's meant to intervene, who's meant to intervene and to act and to think of what is occurring. Who is the patient? Who is the nurse? What hospital is this? What medical intervention is necessary? What's going on? Do you understand? Are there connections between all the different scenes? You are compelled to not just sit there and watch.